Hi, everyone. This will be a series entitled Mark of the Beast. This is episode number 1, Tools That May Effectuate It. We'll take a look at some modern examples. But first, let's look at the passages we're talking about. So Revelation 13:16 says, "And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads." So the one who's going to do this is the beast of the book of Revelation. So it's beyond the scope of what I'm talking about is who is the beast. We're just talking about somebody in the future who will be known as the beast, will be using a mark, and it's going to be applied to everyone. That's what it says. The mark is on everyone, all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now, when you read 13 verses 17, you're going to see a little variance here. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So it's not just if you have the mark, you might not have the mark. And you could then buy or sell maybe with the name, or you don't have the mark, but you would have the number of his name. So you had two other ways of getting purchases done. So even though the beast causes everyone to have the mark, apparently there are some people who don't, and therefore the mark can't be used, and you have to use something like the name or the number of his name. Isn't that interesting? Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So again, that's also beyond the scope of what we are going to get into. To identify the name of the beast would then be discussing who is the beast, and we're not trying to go there. We're trying to understand what are we to be looking out for in terms of what would be able to be a way to control how we buy or sell things, maybe prohibit or control that. So we're going to take a look at a couple of things that have come out in the news of late. Okay, now the first thing we're going to look at is the trucker strike in Canada of recent. I'm not going to talk about the merits or demerits of the strike itself. Just want to show you what is possible with the government power that exists today. And it was exerted in that case, and we're going to go through what that case was about a little bit, but we're not getting into the merits of the trucker dispute, which I understand had things to do with masking or not masking and things of that sort. And the truckers were parking in the middle of downtown Ottawa, and they were saying, we're not moving until we get this addressed by the legislature. Of course, the legislature doesn't do anything, and they vilified the truckers to make them look like it's all their fault. And now, a month or two later, now Canada has no masks. So go figure. But look at what happens to these people who brought it up. So let's turn to a video from their local Canadian news back then.
If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. The consequences are real, and they will bite. It is time for you to go home. And let me also be clear that we will have zero tolerance for the establishment of new blockades or occupations.
Now, Heather, there has been criticism of this because banks have essentially been directed not to have any sort of financial relationship with some of these protesters, which is going to make it very difficult for them to get access to bank accounts, to have a credit card, for example, which, of course, is pretty difficult to live this day and age without those sorts of things. So.
All right, so what we can see from this video is it says even in the heading, Federal Government of Canada says banks have started to freeze accounts linked to protests. So if you can abridge free speech by punishing people by freezing their bank accounts so they can't get credit cards or their credit cards no longer work, you've prevented them from buying or selling anything you prevented them from buying. But notice by not having them have a bank account, they can't sell things and receive money into a normal bank account where it's safe and secure. So you have impeded the ability to buy or sell anything. And so the topic of this is a matter of free speech. I mean, these people were not violent. They were parked in an area where, I always wondered, why don't you just go and arrest these people? Why freeze their bank accounts? Because you can. Is that the way to deal with people, by being controlling their financial life and ruining them financially? because to me that's really outrageous. By the way, just as a lawyer, in our country, due process, we don't punish you before we've proven you've done something criminal. If they've done something criminal, go arrest them. Go take them out of their trucks, arrest them, and haul the trucks off from where they were. That's the way it's always been done in the past. You don't try to destroy them financially and ruin their lives, take their trucks away, cancel their insurance so they can't even haul a load. I mean, that is extortion. That is like you're a criminal mafia running a government, trying to enforce it by destroying people before a hearing and a trial. You've tried and convicted them in the public, and that's not the way it should ever be done. It should always be judicious, slow, take your time, read the people their rights, tell them you have 48 hours to leave. If you don't leave, we're going to arrest you. That's the way it's always been done. And then there's such a thing known as a tow truck. Maybe they couldn't get any tow truck drivers to tow these people away because there's sympathy. And so a government has to make a decision, when the people have sympathy from other people, and you can't get people to arrest them. The cops don't want to arrest them, don't want to haul them away. That's probably what's also going on. So the federal government only has one step left, which is to be a dictatorial regime. And that's not the way to go. So obviously this has its own issues, and I'm not going to get into it, except it just on its face, it looks completely illegal under American law. Canadian law, this is probably okay. I don't know. But in our law, you don't try and convict someone without a trial. Everyone has right to due process. But apparently in Canada, there's no right to due process, and there's apparently no right to free speech. I'm sad to see our neighbor to the north falling into this pit, but whatever. But it totally gives us an example of how you would have people be prevented to buy and sell, and it has nothing to do with the mark on their head or their hand. It could be, but even if you don't have that, you don't need that. You can force people by virtue of not knowing the name or the code name, like the 666 is a code, isn't it? It's a digital code. So if you have the digital code that you're given by the government, you could maybe reopen your account. And so that's maybe, for example, what if I'm being hypothetical here? What if they said, okay, all of your accounts can be opened if you digitally type in the name 666 or the word beast? Just being hypothetical. Again, these are symbolic or metaphor names, so there'll be a different name, probably, and a different number in God's regime of how this is going to come down in the future. He's giving you something to see, the number 666 or the mark of the name of the beast. But literally, I think that means these are metaphors and not to be taken literally. Anyway, so let's take a look at another example. I want to look at the China credit course system and see if you can see anything in that which would lead you to be in the similar situation. So let's take a look at that next.
Everywhere she goes, Ouyang Haoyu is followed. What she buys, how she behaves, is tracked and scored to show how responsible and trustworthy she is. It's called the social credit system, and in one version now being tested, a person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950. And Haoyu, with a good score of 752, is okay with it. In fact, most people are.
By the way, I want to interrupt there. Most people are okay with this system. That's what they're telling you. Did they do a survey of all the Chinese people? Is this obviously basically a whitewash by the NBC News? You'll see this is NBC News. And why would NBC News do that? It just seems so odd that our media today uncritically reports things from China as if they're fact, when maybe you have to tell us, did you, under circumstances that showed the person had no intimidation by their government, by using a social credit score system, maybe they'd be a bad citizen if they said anything negative? Do you see the irony of this? Is that the person knows that if I say anything negative about this credit score system, I'm going to get a demerit. I'm going to go down. So just on its face, it's preposterous. You have to ask a question: is the people who are undergoing this, do they feel free to speak against the system? Will it be found out if they get on TV and they are interviewed? For example, this lady is going to be interviewed. If she said anything negative, would she have been fearful? This is the question I would ask her, not what you're going to hear, a softball question. Are you afraid sitting here today that if this goes on the news and it airs in the United States, that you'll be retaliated against and you'll have a demerit on your credit score system, and you might not get the right job, you might not get the right boyfriend, your children might not go to the right school? Are you afraid of any of that? And if the person said, "Oh no, I'm not worried about that at all," if you put it on the air, no problem. You just it belies common sense. So again, I can't believe the media today just ask questions, softball questions, and never think think critically. And what I would do if I were a media person, I'm in this situation, I would make no comment. And all I would say is we've not been able to contact any person who's not subject to this, who's inside the system, who's willing to talk and admit and tell us honestly that they're not afraid they'll be retaliated against. If we can find someone like that, we'll put them on air. That's what I would have said. Anyway, but let's get back to this video.
It's a mechanism like pushes you to become a better citizen.
It's big data meets Big Brother, expanding how the government monitors, understands, and ultimately controls its 1.4 billion citizens. Thanks to advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition, and a web of more than 200 million surveillance cameras.
Are people bothered by privacy concerns?
Now, I wouldn't call this exactly a softball question. It directly goes to the heart of the matter. But again, I need to know, who is this guy? Is he working in a company that is part owned by the People's Republic of China Army, which is a pretty standard thing that goes on in that country? Is there any freedom here that he can speak negatively about this, that you should make sure he's can express some opinion that is not coerced? Because we don't want to have fake news. We don't want to have propaganda. We want to know what's the truth. So you've got to find someone who doesn't have this link potentially involved and ask that person the question. So that would be the question I would ask. I wouldn't just say, is there any privacy concerns? Because you're going to see he's going to whitewash that. So is he speaking for, is he the common man, or is he a inside man? Is he working for the government? It's never disclosed. All right, with that caveat, we'll resume the interview with this gentleman.
A lot of camera keep the safety is really good. We can accept it.
Companies are experimenting with the algorithms to help the government create the new national social credit system. The government also has pilot projects. In one, citizens are required to do hours of unpaid work to get benefits.
All right, I'm just going to interject here. So if these people are entitled to benefits under the economic policies of China, the Republic of China, at Beijing, if they're entitled to welfare or some other kind of benefit, but they have to work to get it, they've now therefore really lost their benefits because they now have to earn what was their right already. So all you can call them is basically slave labor, because this is labor they're being forced to give in order to get what was already theirs. So that's the definition of slavery. You don't have a right to something that you thought you had. Now you have to earn it all over again. So I pray to God this is not talking about benefits of like Social Security, maybe like some optional benefits government doesn't have to give you, but if you do some good work, then they'll give you some extra benefits. That would be fair. So this interviewer is not doing a good job of making clear, is this slave labor or is this get extra benefits you otherwise wouldn't have gotten otherwise? So that would be different. So again, she's not giving us full explanation, but again, does this not show you the ability to use these incentives to actually make you do things you would not otherwise do? And that's what is the aspect of this that is would be a step towards a mark of the beast system in the United States or other parts of the world. This kind of system could be used to do that because it creates conditions for you to get your own rights back. How to reopen your bank account? Well, you have to do 100 hours of community service down at the park, and then you get your money back out of your account. And then we'll give you the code 666, and you can type it in. You get that in there, or we'll give you a name, BEAST, and you can get in there and re-access your funds. You see how this could be worked. Anyway, let's go back and let this finish.
And scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip, even jaywalking. Video of offenders is shown on the local news. And information collectors like Zhou Aini are paid to report on their neighbors. Her quota, 10 entries a month. Like the man who carried a drunk person home. A good deed, she says. Good social credit gets rewarded with perks like cheap loans and travel deals. But a bad score means public shame and worse. Huang Huijun lost a court case and didn't pay. Now he's on a government blacklist. I can't buy airplane or train tickets, he says, and the list goes on. Being discredited makes it hard to get a job or put kids in top schools. The social credit system will go nationwide next year, and few here are willing to criticize it, something that may pose a risk itself for a bad score and the life that comes with it. Janice Mackey-Frere, NBC News, Beijing. And few here are willing to criticize it, something that may pose a risk itself for a bad score and the life that comes with it.
Okay, so right there at the end, she finally says something that is alarming. She says, and there are few willing to criticize it. So now she's letting you know, no, nobody really wants to criticize this because it's going to go against them on the point system itself. So this is not a productive exercise. So they're not going to say anything. And so she's experienced something. By the time she gets to the end of the episode, she's kind of changing her tune, saying, and they're reluctant to criticize it. So let me replay that small clip.
And few here are willing to criticize it, something that may pose a risk itself for a bad score and the life that comes with it.
This is precisely what George Orwell in his book 1984, which was made into this movie, forecasted, and he was basically dealing with the Big Brother is watching you, was the projection of what he imagined this new totalitarian state would become. It was literally something you couldn't get away from. It could watch you at all moments. It could control your every step. What you buy and sell would be just small potatoes compared to everything else it could do. And it could teach you and brainwash you to believe things like uh, war is peace and freedom is slavery. So you have to live with these contradictions. Freedom? Oh, I don't want freedom because it's actually slavery. I don't want. I mean, I want war because that's the way to peace. So war becomes peace. So, by the way, the war party of today doesn't understand that George Orwell was mocking you. The neocon movement of today, which is a uniparty political viewpoint, which is we always want war. We want perpetual war for perpetual revolution and regime change, and who knows what else is the goal, or is it to make money for the military industrial complex? That's a whole nother thing. So war is peace. That's the way to peace. And how do we get freedom? We become enslaved and then we're free. See, it's the world is topsy-turvy and we are halfway there. We believe war is peace. We believe that's the path to peace is war. And so that's the crazy world we live in today. But anyway, the point is this: we want to get away from the dictatorial control over our cash, our money, and digital currency is a way to do that. And electronic control over your credit score would be another way of doing that, where your credit score could be so low you would be deprived of the right to buy or sell without passing the credit score. And so they would do everything they would to make you want to comply in order to stay alive. All right. So anyway, I hope that helps us know what we need to be looking for and to resist, if we can, by democratic means, by your vote at the ballot, to not support candidates who basically will put our freedoms at risk because of their agendas. And freedom is without freedom, what's left? So I think liberals, the right, the Republicans, Democrats, we have a strong consensus in that middle area where we want freedom and we don't want war. We want peace and we don't want slavery. So how do we get that? We don't take steps in that direction. We have resisted and we tell our politicians, nope, we want you to stop doing those kind of things. We need freedom and we need peace. And we pray to God that we'll have it this coming year in the next 12 months. Anyway, everybody take care. God bless. Ciao. Bye.